I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. The same-sex marriage debate continues in New York. We'll have the latest. Plus, taking a big step. Just ahead of ordinations in Brooklyn, a soon-to-be deacon and his wife share their story.
The whole process has been one long discernment, and I guess it still continues up until Saturday.
Right. And can pictures save the world?
If you can integrate yourself and have a relationship with your subject to a degree, then you're going to actually tell people the true story of somebody and actually have some effect on their response.
Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Another big name added his voice to the fight to legalize same-sex marriage in New York State. In a major address this afternoon, New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg made the case for marriage equality at a speech at Cooper Union. Now, while Mayor Bloomberg has no vote or direct control over state legislation, he is an influential force in New York State politics. And he used his influence today to call for a vote on the same-sex marriage issue before the end of Albany's legislative session on June 20th. It was only a few weeks ago that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo publicly stated that he would not bring the controversial bill to the Senate floor unless its passage was guaranteed. Now, if you recall, when same-sex marriage came up for a vote back in 2009 under then Governor David Paterson's administration, 8 Senate Democrats joined with every single Republican to vote no on the bill, and it was soundly defeated. 3 of those no votes came on the Democratic side of the aisle from state senators Carl Krueger, Shirley Huntley, and Joseph Adabo of the Brooklyn Queens delegation. With the possibility of a vote on same-sex marriage hanging in the air, could any of them switch sides? Well, I'll put that question right now to tonight's guest, Queens State Senator Joseph Adabo. Senator Adabo, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask you the big $64,000 question right out of the gate. How are you going to vote on this bill?
Well, I guess if there's a column listed as undecided, that would be me. 2 years ago, Matt, when my vote was no, it was clearly my intention to be the voice of the residents in my district, and that's what I told everyone. The no vote really represented what I believed at the time and known it to be at the time was the consensus of the people in my district. You know, this is a consensus that I took at, civic meetings and phone calls and emails and faxes, and truly I believe that an elected official should be the voice of their people that they represent, in their respective elected office. The oath that we took is an oath to represent all the people, and so the way I've governed even during my days in the city council and certainly now as a state senator is trying to get that consensus. So the no vote 2 years ago was really just that. It was what I believed, and again known to be the consensus of my people, and we're going to do it again just like that this time out as well.
Sure. Are you getting any sense of where constituents are this time around so far?
All I can tell you, we have 3 offices, 1 in Albany and then 2 in the district, Matt, that are gaining, this data from our constituents, phone calls, emails, like I said, faxes. I did a newsletter into the district, and the newsletter went to every registered voter and basically had 3 questions, one of which was marriage equality. Wanted the residents to, give me feedback on those 3 issues listed in the newsletter. We got those back. There's been opponents of the bill. There have been proponents of the bill, both working my district through phone calls and robocalls and train stops and door-to-door. This issue of marriage equality obviously can be seen on many levels, and so therefore very little urging is required to get someone to give their opinion about the issue.
Right. Now, of course, as we've mentioned here, you voted no on the bill back in 2009. Is there any other reason besides just the views of your constituents that would make you change sides this time around?
Well, as with any issue, I try and keep an open door policy, and I speak to people that I agree with daily, and I speak to people I don't agree with daily, and that's the role of an elected official. And I think, again, the best elected official tries to keep an open view about the issues that they need to vote on, again, in Albany, for me, in Albany, in the Senate chamber. And I am but one voice, or one opinion that is mine, and I've basically kept it to myself on this issue, certainly marriage equality, as I've listened to others. And the reason I had done that, Matt, is when trying to obtain a true consensus of the district, if I had said that I was personally for marriage equality, then the only people I would hear from were those against it. And if I said I was personally against it, the only people I would hear from would be those who were for it. And so therefore, not to skew or not to have a biased input from the constituency, but yet an unbiased opinion, I've kept my personal opinion out of it. I really have. And, try to keep an open mind. As, again, remember that the oath I took was to represent everybody. So, it's a difficult issue to deal with on certain levels. It's an issue that has a magnitude of a direct impact for many in the state. I understand the importance for some of this issue.
Do you get a feeling, if it does come up for a vote, do you get a feeling from your colleagues in the Senate how they're going to vote? Do you know if it'll pass if it comes up?
I truly believe what the governor said is right. The only way it does go for a vote is if it goes for a vote and is passed. I do believe it was a disservice to those who believe in same-sex marriage to have a bill go to the floor and be defeated. Really not the way it should have went. If it was spoken about openly and discussed openly, there was no discussion openly about the issue last time. Really quite chaotic the way it was pushed to the floor last time. I think this time out, the governor is so intent about doing it right in his eyes, certainly to make sure if it does go to the floor, it will pass. And I think that's the way the governor has orchestrated that it would happen sometime in the future.
All right. Well, and also I just wanted to mention as well, we spoke to someone with the New York State Catholic Conference yesterday, and they did mention you as one of those people who might quite possibly could switch sides this time around. Any response to the Catholic Conference kind of being concerned that you might, I guess, switch sides on them a little bit?
Well, again, I leave it really in the hands of my people. I painfully take painstaking efforts to make sure I do things fairly. And listening to my people, the people who put me there, the people who I work for each and every day. It is their voice that I try to be up in Albany, and in the end, we will have put forth a process that tries to account for everybody who has weighed in on the issue. So, that's what I could say at this point, and so we will see when that bill comes up for a vote what the tally is at that point.
All right, Senator Joseph Addabbo, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Matt, for your time as well.
Thank you. Well, our producers also reached out to the offices of Carl Kruger and Shirley Huntley to find out where they stood on the possible same-sex marriage vote. Kruger's people said no one was available for comment, and we were told that Huntley remains undeclared on her vote. Well, stay tuned. An EWTN radio host and former Clinton official gets it on from the U.S. Bishops' Conference. We'll have that story plus the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, new perspectives on a canvas of faith. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, Father Patrick Conroy, a Jesuit priest, has been sworn in as the new house chaplain. Conroy becomes the second Catholic to hold the position of house chaplain. A couple of weeks ago, his nomination was the subject of heavy scrutiny over news that his religious order, the Jesuits' Oregon province, paid out $166 million earlier in the year to settle sex abuse claims. Conroy was not a member of the order when the abuse took place. An EWTN radio host and a former Clinton administration official are among the newest members of the U.S. Bishops' National Review Board. The board is tasked with reviewing the bishop's annual report on the Charter for Protecting Children and Young People. The newest members include Colleen Keeley-Mast, a co-host of the EWTN radio show The Doctor Is In. Mast also developed an abstinence education program known as Sex Respect. Also selected to the National Review Board, Susan King, who previously worked as a journalist at ABC News, also CNN, and served as an assistant secretary in the Labor Department. And the bishops will vote on revisions to their charter for the protection of children and young people when they meet next month. In a news release, the bishops say the revisions would bring the charter in line with the most recent Vatican instructions. The revisions would specifically mention child pornography as a crime against church law and hold that abusing someone who habitually lacks reason, like someone who is mentally handicapped, is equivalent to child abuse. The bishops will meet for 3 days in Seattle beginning on June 15th. A new Gallup poll shows more Americans than ever believe relations between people of the same sex should be legal. 64% of respondents believe same-sex relationships should be legally recognized, but slightly less than that, 56%, believe they are morally acceptable. The same poll also showed 53% support legalization of same-sex marriage. Well, the Supreme Court has ruled that an Arizona law that punishes businesses for hiring undocumented immigrants is constitutional. The law, which was enacted in 2007, allows Arizona to suspend the licenses of businesses that knowingly violate work eligibility requirements. Companies would be required to use E-Verify, that's a federal database, to check the eligibility of current and prospective employees. Just last year, Arizona's governor signed into law another immigration measure that sparked controversy. That law gives police in the state the authority to question suspects about their immigration status. That's a law that U.S. bishops called draconian. That measure is making its way through lower courts. Well, meanwhile, a Wisconsin judge has struck down a law that takes away collective bargaining rights for most state workers. The judge ruled that Republican lawmakers in the state failed to provide enough public notice before passing the law. Well, that law sparked fierce public outcry from both supporters and opponents. Wisconsin's Supreme Court will hear arguments next month to determine whether it will consider the case. Bishops in the state did not take sides in the debate, but they called for everyone to work together. And Oprah Winfrey's 25-year television run has come to an end. The media giant signed off her daily talk show for the final time yesterday. And what's the secret to the show's success? Well, according to Oprah, it's her team and Jesus. She talked about her belief in God for several minutes during her show's final episode. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents ahead. Coming up, a soon-to-be deacon and his wife share their story.
Through the leadership of Bishop DiMarzio, he has really, I think, put an emphasis on the relationship between priest and deacon and the brotherhood, the bond of ordination that we share.
Welcome back. Well, vocations, what they are, how you discern one, and your path to discovering your vocation, well, all our regular viewers know that all of those different topics are very popular topics here at Currents. Now, when most people think of vocations in the church, they think of the men in the collars, the priests, who are the very public face of service and sacrifice in the church. But you know, there are other vocations. There are brothers, there are religious sisters, and there's also another vocation that doesn't often get nearly as much attention as the others. There are the deacons. Actually, there are nearly 200 deacons throughout the Diocese of Brooklyn, and also, which of course includes Brooklyn and Queens, to be precise. And come this Saturday, after their diaconate ordination at Our Lady of Angels Parish in Bay Ridge, well, there'll be 27 more. Unlike the priesthood, married men can become deacons, but just like priests, they serve the church in their own unique way. And we learned about that way and the path to the diaconate from one of the soon-to-be deacons in the Diocese of Brooklyn, Carlos Garcia of St. Michael, St. Malachy. He was joined by his wife, Barbara Garcia. Well, Carlos, soon-to-be Deacon Carlos, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Barbara as well. Thanks so much for taking time out for us. We really do appreciate it very much. Now, Carlos, first question to you, of course, the big day for you coming up here very, very quickly, your ordination this coming weekend.
Yes.
And then I believe a massive celebration on Sunday also at your parish, right?
Yes.
So Saturday, the ordination, Sunday, massive celebration. It's going to be a big weekend for you. What made you want to take this step and become a deacon?
Well, I think it was more being open to the Word of God and having the being able to have the grace to just sit back and really pray over it and discern. The whole process has been one long discernment, and I guess it still continues up until Saturday.
Right.
I think it's just being open to listening to other people's guidance.
Yeah, and open and being open to hear that call.
Yes.
And as you said, it is quite a process, and it's a process that involves a lot of discernment, as you said, a lot of study also. Barbara, what effect has all of this had on your relationship as husband and wife?
I think it's brought us closer together through prayer.
Yeah. It's been so it's been a good experience as far as you're concerned. Him being, having to study and be in the books and everything all the time hasn't bothered you or anything?
No.
No.
It's been an excellent journey so far.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear because it is a lot. Tell us a little bit about that, the sort of the formation experience, Carlos. What's it like?
Could be nerve-wracking. There's other times that because of your brothers, that are in the class with you, the bond that you form with them, you just become one big diaconate family, and we lean on each other very much. So we get each other through. There's been times that where somebody didn't have a ride or somebody was having trouble. We formed study groups. So we got through as a family. We got through. We brought each other to this point.
To get through it together.
Absolutely.
How long is the formation period?
It's 1 year of aspirancy, 4 years of candidacy, and then 3 years of ongoing formation.
Right, right. So it's
So
not
it's
just
still, yes.
one day you decide, oh, I think I'm being called to be a deacon, and the next day you're ordained. It's
Oh,
nothing like that.
absolutely not, no.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, of course, last year, I believe, in the diocese, there was the first ever convocation of priests and deacons together at the same time. Has there been a big emphasis placed on, of course, working together with priests of the diocese and you know, just making that sort of that bond of brotherhood with fellow people who are ordained?
Yes, absolutely. I think through the leadership of Bishop DiMarzio, he has really, I think, put an emphasis on the relationship between priest and deacon and the brotherhood, the bond of ordination that we share.
Sure.
So we've, that one workshop was very detailed about things that we share and ministries that we can go into together.
Right. Got to be able to work together.
Absolutely.
Barbara, for you, what role is the family going to play here in moving forward as far as your relationship goes? I mean, I know there has to be a lot of support there as far as the family goes as well, because this is going to be not only, it hasn't only been, of course, a formation process, but a life in ministry as well. So it's going to be difficult. Carlos, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I think for us, a continuation of the support that has already been taking place, because one of the things that I think Barbara was, so a lot of times because she wasn't able to go to class with me, she felt like she wasn't supporting me. But one of the things that I think we, as the couple that we are, need to get across to people that may be discerning the call, that it's up to each individual couple to decide what is right for you as far as support. For us, it made it easier for her to stay home on Mondays and Thursdays, to be able to take care of the things that I would normally do, the homework and taking out the garbage and things like that. But those practical things gave me the ability to actually go to class and concentrate on what I needed to concentrate on.
Right.
So, I mean, without those quote-unquote little things that really, for me, were, to use a ginormous word, you know, it really was. It was very big for me.
I like that word, ginormous. I actually use that all the time.
Okay.
One more question for you, Carlos. What is your day job, and how does that kind of play into this now upcoming ministry as a deacon?
Well, right now I'm currently the director of the Diocesan Retreat Center. Sure. So it works into it because I have a lot of contact with different groups, particularly youth and married couples, which is something that, again, Bishop DiMarzio has placed an emphasis on. So hopefully through my work/ministry, we'll be able to bring those groups into the limelight, into the forefront, because without the youth and families, the church is going to have some issues if we don't support those groups.
Well, and you are a lucky and a blessed man to have support of your wonderful wife here as well today. Barbara and Carlos, both, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents ahead. When we return, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Turns out it could be worth much more.
When we see something beautiful, we see a beautiful sunset, we are in total awe. Looking at that experience, going deeper into it, is precisely what needs to happen in order for us to get a better understanding of, you know, what it means to be human.
Well, finally tonight, how would you choose to change the world if you could pick your very own weapon of choice? Well, some of you might choose prayer, others the power of the word to change hearts, but there are some of you who might choose to do it through the power of, let's say, a snapshot. And it seems like this society, is very obsessed with taking pictures. There are cameras in our computers and on our phones. I know that iPhone camera comes in handy quite a bit. There are cameras that require extra equipment just to set up, and those that can fit in our shirt pockets. So cameras run the gamut, right? Well, we mostly take pictures that freeze personal moments in our lives, but there are those who take pictures hoping that their art can make the world a better place, even if the picture they take is of an ugly reality. Well, last night, Crossroads Cultural Center, along with Columbia University's Catholic Ministry, hosted a discussion that asked, among other things, what photography can reveal about humanity and if indeed beauty can save the world.
Photojournalism as a profession deals every day with some important philosophical questions. For instance, how does a photographer or photo editor answer his desire for truth in image making without becoming a victim of his own prejudices and preconceptions? And considering that a photograph has the power to freeze time, to capture a fleeting moment in an ever-changing continuum of reality, what obligation does a photojournalist have to go beyond the isolated moment and explore more deeply the truth of his subjects?
I think the idea is if you can integrate yourself and have a relationship with your subject to a degree, then you're going to actually tell people the true story of somebody and actually have some effect on their response. You're going to have an emotional connection with those people through that work. If you try and objectively view and try and tell people something about the world, sometimes that just doesn't get anywhere. I mean, I think the most important thing is not the photograph itself, but the process that leads to the way the photograph is taken.
The value of the work of photography in shedding light on reality is becoming much more of a question, and is at the forefront of people's curiosity. And so we wanted to really address that question and speak with someone who's actually in the industry.
There are many photographers out there now who've come to the realization, maybe because there is less media dissemination on their behalf, less people as Life magazine were willing to do in the 1960s, willing to stick their neck out and actually do something on behalf of an issue or for somebody's beliefs. Now has come the point in time where people have to do this for themselves.
I think that art spurs people to action because it really communicates in a way that words or discourse or, a lecture can't. When we see something beautiful, we see a beautiful sunset, we are in total awe, and it's a universal experience. I think that is, looking at that experience, going deeper into it, is precisely what needs to happen in order for us to get a better understanding of what it means to be human and what it is that moves us.
It's important if it makes people think about something and it stimulates them to look a little bit further into things. I think that's the more important thing. I'm not trying to tell people how to do or be. I'm trying to actually stimulate people to investigate something for themselves.
I believe that even in every documentary there is always a sense of hope, even just in the documentary being made in itself. So if maybe through showing something that's not beautiful in the world, people will reach out and help make it beautiful.
You think of very powerful photographs that you've seen in your lifetime, and I know several have kind of been going through my mind as I've been watching this piece. And it's amazing how much just one singular image in one moment in time can really tell a story and have a great emotional impact on a lot of people. And yeah, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but as I said earlier in a tease to one of the teases to this particular piece, rather, it is worth a lot more than that old saying would make you think. Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. It's all about Mary as we come to the end of the month of Mary. We'll have that and more coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, be sure to visit us online over at currentsny.net. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.